The battlefield was silent now, only the smoke of ruined machines rising into the gray sky. She lay there in the mud, her body trembling, her skin marked with glowing blue lines of her alien kind. Her arms felt weak, and her heart raced as heavy footsteps approached. She thought this was the end, the moment humans always waited for. To finish what they started, the shadow fell over her. Tall and sharp against the smoke, she forced her eyes open and saw the figure, a human soldier in dark armor, his weapon. Still glowing hot from battle, she gasped, her throat tight with fear. Because she had been told since childhood that humans never spared enemies, they ended lives quickly, without mercy. And now she was in his hands. The soldier crouched down. Beside her, his helmet hiding his face for a moment. She expected the blade, the fire, the strike that would tear her apart. Her body shivered as she braced for death, but instead of killing her, he touched her arm gently. His gloved hand pressed against her wound, stopping the bleeding. Her mind could not understand, confusion twisted with fear. Why was he helping her? Why did he not finish her as humans always did? She tried to push him away, but her strength was gone. All she could do was whisper in her language, begging him not to take her life. He did not speak her tongue, but his tone was calm, his voice low and steady. The sound of it made her heart shake, not with pain, but with something strange. Something she had never felt before. He lifted her carefully from the ground. Her body light in his arms, she struggled weakly, believing this was just another way of taking her to her end. Through the broken ruins he carried her, his steps heavy, his grip strong. The alien girl could hear the distant cries of her people. But no one came for her. She felt like a lost child, alone in the hands of her enemy. Every beat of her heart told her this was the last path she would ever walk. When they stopped, he set her against a wall. The firelight of burning wrecks, casting shadows around them. He removed his helmet, and for the first time she saw his face. A human face. Scarred and tired, yet his eyes held no cruelty. Only something quiet, something heavy with meaning. She stared at him. Breath caught in her chest. The human reached into his pack and pulled out a small container of water. He offered it to her. Holding it close so she could see, her throat burned with thirst, but fear locked her body still. Was it poison? Was it a trick before the end? Slowly, he tilted the container, letting a drop fall against her lips. The cool touch made her eyes widen. Her chest filled with a rush of relief. She drank, trembling, unsure if she was giving in to life or stepping closer to death, but for the first time, she felt something unexpected: mercy. Her thoughts raced, stories of humans as beasts, killers, and monsters crashing against the sight before her. This soldier did not act like the monster she had feared. He treated her like something fragile, something worth saving. The fear inside her did not vanish, but a seed of doubt grew in its place as the night deepened. She closed her eyes for a moment, her body weak, her spirit torn between terror and confusion. The last thing she saw before sleep pulled her away was the human, sitting close, his weapon ready, his eyes scanning the dark night for her escape. But for her safety, she thought her life was over when he found her. Yet now, she did not know what tomorrow would bring. All she knew was that her story with this human was only beginning. The night stretched long, filled with the sounds of distant fire and broken machines. The alien girl opened her eyes slowly, her body still aching, her wounds wrapped by strange human fabric. She remembered the hands that touched her, not with pain, but with care, and it confused her. Why would a human do this? Why would an enemy show her mercy? She shifted slightly, her sharp eyes watching the man who sat near the dying fire. He was awake, his weapon close, his gaze fixed on the shadows around them. Every move he made was calm, almost careful, as if he did not want to frighten her. yet fear filled her heart. Because she could not trust what she did not understand. Her people had told her many stories. Stories of humans burning villages, of humans taking captives only to use them for cruel games. She had believed every word, and now those stories echoed. Inside her mind like screams, she wrapped her arms around herself, waiting for the moment when his kindness would change into violence. When he noticed her awake, he turned his head, his eyes meeting hers. There was no smile, no words, only a steady look that seemed to say he meant no harm. Still, her body tensed, every instinct whispering to her that this was a trick. She hissed softly in her language, warning him not to come closer. The human raised his hand slowly, showing he carried no weapon at that moment. He reached for his pack and pulled out food. Strange human rations sealed in small metal. He opened one and placed it between them, not pushing it toward her, but leaving it in the middle. She blinked at it, hunger twisting her stomach, yet suspicion chaining her in place. Her people always said humans were clever hunters. They would use food, gifts, even soft voices to lure you into their trap. Was this what he was doing? Was this the beginning of her end? She glared at the packet, her fingers twitching, torn between survival and pride. The human took one piece of food himself, biting into it with ease. He chewed slowly, his eyes never leaving her, as if to say, "See, it is safe." Her lips parted in shock, because she did not expect him to share something with her. In her world, humans took everything they never gave. Minutes passed, heavy with silence, until her body betrayed her. She reached out with shaking hands, grabbed the ration and brought it close. Her heart pounded as she tasted it. The flavor strange, dry, but filling. Each bite felt like surrender, yet also like survival. The human did not laugh, did not mock her. He simply nodded once and returned his gaze to the fire. For the first time, she felt like she was not prey. But still, she could not trust him fully. She pulled the jacket he had given her tighter, her mind spinning with doubt and questions. When the night grew colder, he stood and walked a little away. He looked at the stars, his face hidden in shadow, his shoulders heavy with silence. The alien girl studied him, searching for signs of cruelty, but found only weariness. It unsettled her because she wanted to hate him, yet part of her could not. She whispered to herself, her alien tongue soft and broken, "Why are you doing this? Why do you not kill me?" Though he could not hear her words, the wind carried her voice, and for a brief moment, she thought she saw him glance back, as if he understood anyway. The night ended slowly, the first light of dawn painting the sky with pale colors. The human packed his things, moving with care, then motioned for her to follow. Her body tensed again. Because this was it, she thought, he would lead her to a cage, or to death. But instead, he walked ahead, his pace steady. Not dragging her, not forcing her, only waiting for her to move. Step by step, she followed him through the ruins. Every sound made her heart jump. Every shadow felt like danger. Yet the greatest danger was the storm inside her own chest, the fear of him, and the strange feeling that he was not her enemy after all. She kept her eyes on his back, watching the way he moved, strong, silent, never once turning to mock her or threaten her. It was strange, it was frightening, it was wrong, and yet it made her want to know why. Why was this human different? Why did he not end her life when he had the chance? Her heart whispered an answer she did not want to hear. Maybe the stories of her people were not the full truth. Maybe humans were not only monsters, and maybe this soldier was about to awaken something inside her that was far more dangerous than fear. The morning air was cold, carrying the smell of smoke and dust. The alien girl walked slowly behind the human soldier, her steps unsteady, her body still weak from wounds. Every time she looked at his back, her mind filled with fear, yet also with confusion. Why was he keeping her alive? Why did he not chain her like a prisoner? He did not tie her hands. He did not force her to move faster. He only glanced back sometimes to check if she was still following. That made her heart beat faster because she knew she could run. She could try to escape into the ruins. But something inside her whispered that if she left, the world outside would kill her faster than he ever could. The ruins stretched far, broken towers and shattered machines. The silence was broken only by distant echoes of battles still burning somewhere beyond the horizon. Her sharp alien eyes caught shadows moving in the distance. Scavengers, or worse, soldiers from her own side hunting for survivors. If they found her with a human, they would kill her without hesitation. Calling her a traitor, the human raised his hand suddenly, signaling her to stop. She froze, her heart racing, as he crouched low and aimed his weapon into the rubble ahead. For a moment, she thought he had finally turned on her, but then she heard its footsteps, heavy and sharp. A patrol of machines moved through the wreckage, red eyes glowing like fire. Searching for life to destroy, she held her breath, pressing against the wall. Her body trembling, the soldier stayed still. His fingers steady on the trigger, waiting. The machines passed, their metal bodies grinding against stone. Their sensors sweeping the ground. One beam of red light stopped close to her face, and her chest tightened, her breath nearly giving her away. Then the soldier tossed a small device into the opposite shadows. It flashed bright. The machines turned sharply toward it, and in seconds they were gone, chasing the false signal. She exhaled, her legs weak, realizing he had saved her again. But why? Why would he risk his life to protect hers, an enemy? They moved again, quieter this time, the girl watching him closely. Every step told her more about him, not through words, but through actions. He never once looked at her with hatred. Never once lifted his weapon against her. Instead, he seemed to fight everything around them, as if the world itself was his true enemy. Not her. Hours passed, the silence between them heavy but strangely alive. She wanted to ask him questions, but fear locked her tongue. Would he even understand her? Would he laugh at her words or grow angry at her voice? Still, every time his eyes met hers, she felt something stirring. Something deeper than fear. At midday, they stopped near the wreck of a transport ship. Its metal body cracked open. The human searched the inside quickly, then returned with a small pack of supplies. He handed her water again, and this time she did not resist. Her hands shook as she drank, her eyes never leaving his face. He ate little himself, giving most of the food to her. It burned inside her heart, because this was not the way of monsters. Her people had told her humans consumed everything, took everything, left nothing for others. But here he was, giving her more than he took, and it broke the lies she once believed as they rested. She whispered in her own tongue, soft words he could not understand. "Why are you doing this? Why do you carry me with you?" He did not answer, but his eyes turned toward her with something unreadable, something that made her chest feel heavy. Like a storm was rising inside her when they began walking again. Danger returned quickly. A sound echoed from above, a screeching cry that made her blood run cold. Hunters from her own people, winged machines shaped like beasts, swept across the skies. She looked at him in terror, knowing if they saw her with him, both of them would die. He grabbed her hand without warning and pulled her into a tunnel of broken stone. The touch of his hand was firm, warm, nothing like she imagined. They crouched together in the dark as shadows passed above. Their breath shallow, she felt his arm against hers, solid and steady. And for the first time, safety came not from her own kind, but from him, when the danger was gone. He released her hand, stepping away as if the touch meant nothing. But her heart still raced, and she could not stop looking at him. Every step of this silent journey changed her more. She still feared him, yet that fear was no longer the strongest feeling inside her. By the time the sun began to fall, the alien girl knew one truth. She had thought her life would end the moment the human found her, but instead, something else was happening. Something she could not name. And though her people would call it betrayal, she could not deny if she no longer wished to escape him. The night fell heavy again, wrapping the ruins in darkness. The alien girl sat near the fire the human had built, her thin arms hugging her knees, her glowing eyes fixed on the flames. She had followed him through battlefields, through ruins, through shadows filled with death. Every step she expected betrayal, but every step he proved her wrong. The silence between them was deep, filled only with the crackle of burning wood. She wanted to speak, but her voice was trapped by fear. Would he even care for her words? Would he laugh at her weakness? Would he finally show the cruelty her people had promised? He carried inside. Still, her chest was heavy with questions, and she could no longer keep them buried. She looked at him, her lips parting slowly, her voice trembling like a child's. "Why?" she whispered in her alien tongue, her words soft and broken. The human turned his head, his dark eyes meeting hers. She swallowed hard and tried again, her voice shaking. "Why? You not kill me?" He stared at her for a long moment, as if weighing the meaning of her sounds. She thought he would ignore her, but instead, he placed his weapon aside and leaned closer. His voice was low, steady, carrying no anger, no hatred. "Because not every enemy deserves to die," he said. Her chest tightened, her heart pounding so loud she thought it would tear through her skin. The words struck her harder than any blade because she had never heard them before. Her people said humans had no mercy. Yet here was one speaking mercy into her ears. Her breath caught, and for the first time, she saw not a monster, but a man, still. Doubt clawed inside her. She whispered again, her hands trembling. Humans always lie." Her voice cracked, filled with fear, filled with the memory of the stories she grew up with. But he did not shout, did not strike her. He only shook his head slowly. "Believe what you want," he said softly, his eyes reflecting. "The firelight, but I will not kill you." His words echoed in the quiet night. And she pressed her forehead against her knees. Struggling to understand, she wanted to hate him. She wanted to believe her people, but every act of his tore holes in those beliefs. The silence stretched again, but now it felt different. Not the silence of fear, but the silence of two lives. Colliding, she dared to lift her eyes, watching his face, the lines of exhaustion, the scars of battles, the weight of choices. He was not what she imagined. He was human. Yes, but he was more than that. She reached out without thinking, her hand trembling as she touched the fabric of his jacket lying beside her. It was rough, heavy with the smell of smoke and earth. Her heart raced as if she had crossed a line that could never be undone, but the human only glanced at her hand. Then back at the fire, saying nothing. For her, that silence was louder than any words. It told her he did not see her as an animal, nor as a prisoner. He saw her as someone real, someone alive. And that thought frightened her more than death itself, because if he saw her as real, then she had to see him the same when the fire burned lower. The human lay back against the wall, his weapon resting near his arm. The alien girl stayed awake, her glowing eyes never leaving him. Her mind swirled with confusion, with fear, and with something deeper, something she could not name. Every breath she took reminded her that he could have ended her life at any moment, yet he did not. She closed her eyes for a moment, whispering to herself, "Not every enemy deserves to die." The words felt strange in her mouth, heavy but gentle. She repeated them again and again, as if trying to believe them, as if trying to bury the lies her people had given her. When she finally drifted into sleep, She dreamed not of fire, not of war, but of the human's voice. She dreamed of a hand reaching out. Not to strike, but to protect. And though she woke with fear still inside her, something else had awakened too. Something far more dangerous than Hedda, fragile thread of trust. The morning came with a heavy silence, the ruins stretching wide and endless. The alien girl walked behind the human soldier, her steps stronger than before, though her heart still carried fear. She repeated his words inside her mind again and again, not every enemy deserves to die. The words felt strange, almost forbidden. Yet they gave her a warmth she could not explain. The soldier led her through broken streets, the walls scarred with fire. Every shadow seemed alive with danger. Every sound echoed like a warning. The girl kept her distance, but her eyes never left him. He was her captor, yet he was also her shield, and this truth unsettled her deeply as they moved through the rubble. A sharp whistle cut through the air. The human stopped suddenly, his hand raised, his eyes scanning the ruins. She froze, her body trembling, sensing danger approaching. The sound grew louder, metal footsteps, many of them coming fast. A patrol of hostile machines appeared. Their weapons glowing red, they moved in perfect formation. Hunting for survivors, the girl gasped, stepping back. Her body pressed against the cold wall. The soldier turned to her, his expression calm but sharp, and he motioned for her to stay low. The machines opened fire, beams of light cutting through. Stone and dust, the soldier rolled aside, firing back, his weapon flashing bright. The girl ducked, covering her ears. But the ground shook with every strike. Her heart screamed, telling her this was the end. But then one of the machines turned toward her, its glowing eyes locking on her body. She froze in terror. Unable to move, the machine lifted its weapon. And she knew death had finally found her. Yet before the beam fired, the human soldier charged forward. Knocking the machine's aim away, the explosion tore through the ground, dust filling the air. The soldier pulled her down, covering her with his own body. The heat burned close, but his weight shielded her. His arm tight around her shoulders. She felt her breath stolen, not by fear this time, but by the strange safety he gave. When the dust cleared, he rose quickly, firing again, his movements sharp and controlled. She watched him, her heart racing, as he fought with strength and focus, not for glory, but to protect. Another machine lunged at him, claws reaching. This time, without thinking, she screamed and grabbed a piece of broken metal. From the ground, her body moved on instinct, her arm striking hard into the machine's side. The blow was weak compared to his weapon, but it gave him a chance to finish it. He turned, saw her, and for a moment their eyes locked. In that instant, she felt something powerful. She was not just a prisoner, she was his ally. Together, they fought, her small strikes distracting, his powerful shots destroying. The last machine fell with a crash, sparks flying into the air. The battlefield grew silent again, leaving only the sound of their heavy breaths. She stood there, her hands shaking, her body trembling, yet alive. The soldier lowered his weapon, his chest rising and falling. He looked at her, not with anger, not with doubt, but with something deeper, a silent recognition that she had chosen to stand with him. Even for a moment, her heart pounded as if it would break, because she realized she had trusted him with her life. She stepped closer, her voice breaking. "Why? You protect me." He stared at her for a moment, then spoke quietly, "Because you're not my enemy now." The words hit her like fire, burning away the walls she had built inside her. She could no longer deny it. This human had changed something deep within her. For the first time since her capture, she did not see him as a monster. For the first time, she did not see herself as a prisoner. She saw them both as survivors, bound together by danger. And though fear still lived inside her, trust had. Awakened, fragile but real. That night, when they made camp again, she sat closer to him by the fire, not beside him, but close enough to feel his presence. Her eyes studied him quietly, and when their gazes met, he did not look away. The silence between them was no longer heavy, it was alive. Filled with meaning, she thought back to the moment when the machine aimed at her. If not for him, she would be gone, lost to fire and smoke. But he had chosen to protect her. Not once, but again and again, and in her heart. A truth whispered a truth she could no longer escape. The human was no longer just her captor. He was her protector, her shield, and perhaps something even more dangerous, because with every passing moment, she felt less like his prisoner, and more like she belonged by his side. The night air was colder than before, carrying the cries of distant engines and broken steel. The alien girl sat near the fire, her eyes half closed, her body weary but her mind restless. The human soldier rested a short distance away, his weapon beside him, his head lowered in silence. She stared at him, her chest rising and falling. Torn between fear and something far stronger, he had saved her again and again, protecting her from machines, from death, from the fate she once believed was her destiny. Yet, even as her heart whispered trust, her people's voices still screamed. Inside her head, humans are monsters, humans are liars, humans will destroy you the moment you forget to fear them. She pressed her fingers into the dirt, shaking, unable to silence the war inside her. As dawn broke, they moved once more through the ruins. The streets were quiet, too quiet, and every sound of falling stone made her flinch. The soldier kept his weapon ready, his eyes sharp, his movements steady. She followed close this time, no longer wishing to keep distance. Though she did not admit it to herself, then, from the far end of the shattered street, a sound froze her heart, voices, her own people's voices, sharp and clear. Carried by the wind, she gasped, her glowing eyes widening, her hands clutching the fabric of the human's jacket. He turned quickly, his face tightening as he saw the same danger she did. Her people stepped into view, armored and proud, their weapons gleaming with alien light. They were hunters, trackers sent to find survivors, and now they had found her. Standing beside the human, her chest burned with panic because she knew what this meant: betrayal in their eyes. Traitor, one of them shouted in their tongue, the word cutting her like a blade. They raised their weapons, not only at the human but at her as well. Her knees weakened, her throat closed, because she had dreamed of being saved by her people. But in this moment, she understood the truth. They would never forgive what they saw. The human stepped forward, placing himself between her and their fire. His weapon hummed as he aimed, his voice low, steady, filled with defiance. He did not speak her people's language, yet his actions were louder than words. He was ready to fight them all to protect her. Her heart trembled because she realized something unbearable. He would die for her, even though she was not his kind. Even though she was once his enemy, tears stung her eyes, her hands shaking as the hunter shouted again, "Move away from him, come with us, or die beside him." Oh, she looked at the human, his scarred face calm but unyielding. He turned his head slightly, his voice soft as he spoke to her. "You're free," he said. "Go to them if you want. I won't stop you." Her breath caught, her chest tearing apart. Because those words broke her even more than fear, he was giving her the choice. The freedom to leave, to return to her people, to survive. But if she walked away, he would be left alone, surrounded, and surely killed. Her hands curled into fists, her eyes burning with a storm of fire and tears. Her people shouted again, their voices filled with hate. "Come now, or we will cut you down with him." She trembled, her body torn between two worlds. The world she came from and the world she had found in him. For a moment, she saw her past, her childhood, her training, her loyalty, everything she was meant to be. And then she saw him, standing firm, ready to fall for her, the man who spared her life, who shielded her, who showed her a kindness her own kind never had. Her chest tightened, her voice breaking free at last. "No," she cried in her tongue. "I will not leave him." The hunters froze, their glowing eyes narrowing in rage. The word traitor came again, louder, sharper, but she did not step away. She moved closer to the human, her body at his side. Her people could not understand, she no longer cared. The human glanced at her, his eyes holding both surprise and something deeper. For the first time, she met his gaze without fear, her breath steady, her body strong. She was not his prisoner anymore. She was his choice, his ally, his shield as much as he was hers. Her people could call her what they wanted. Traitor, outcast, lost, but her heart had chosen. The air grew still, the hunters raising their weapons higher. The human soldier shifted his stance, ready for the fight to come. The alien girl raised her chin, her glowing eyes burning with a new fire. She had made her choice, and there was no turning back. The street was silent for only a breath. Then her people raised their weapons, their glowing eyes filled with rage. The alien girl stood beside the human soldier, her body trembling but her heart steady. She had chosen, and there was no going back. Her people shouted, calling her a traitor, a shame to her kind. But she no longer cared. The human tightened his grip on his weapon, his stance solid, his gaze locked on the hunters before them. He did not speak her language, yet he seemed to understand the weight of her decision. He gave her a short nod, a silent message that she was not alone. Her chest burned with fear, but also with something powerful, something she had never felt before. The hunters stepped forward, their weapons humming with deadly light. Her throat tightened, her legs shook, but still she did not move away from the human. He was ready to die for her, and she could not let him face it alone for the first time. She raised her voice against her own people. "I am not your enemy," she shouted in her tongue, her voice breaking but fierce. "I will not leave him. He is not what you said. He is not a monster." The hunters froze for a moment, their eyes narrowing in disbelief. Her words were treason, but they were also the truth, a truth she could no longer keep silent. The human stepped forward, firing as the first shot came. The street exploded with sound, beams of light and fire tearing through the rubble. The girl ducked, then grabbed a piece of shattered steel, swinging it to strike one of the hunters who came too close. Her body moved without hesitation, no longer frozen by fear, but alive with courage. Together they fought, her shouts mixing with the roar of his weapon. Every strike he made, she covered his side. Every time she stumbled, he shielded her. The hunters were skilled, stronger, faster. But they did not have what she and the human had. They did not have trust. They did not have the bond born from survival and choice. The battle raged, sparks and blood painting the ground. One hunter lunged, striking the human's shoulder. And he stumbled, pain twisting his face. The girl cried out, rage burning inside her, and she leaped forward with all her strength. She drove her blade into the hunter's side, a cry tearing from her throat as the enemy fell. She turned back to the human, her eyes wide with fear. His arm bled, but he stood tall, his weapon still ready, his eyes fierce. He looked at her with something she never thought she would see from a human pride, and her heart trembled, because in that moment, she wanted nothing more than to keep him alive. At last, the hunters retreated, their shouts fading into the ruins. They had called her traitor, but they had also seen her strength. The human lowered his weapon slowly, his body weary, his breath heavy. The girl stood beside him, her hands shaking, her chest rising and falling. For a long moment, neither spoke, the silence filled only with their breaths. Then she turned to him, her voice soft but steady. "I chose you," she whispered, though she knew he could not understand her words. Still, her eyes carried the meaning, and when his gaze met hers, she knew he understood anyway. He reached out, his hand resting lightly on her shoulder. The touch was gentle, not a command, not a chain, but something deeper. Her heart ached, not with fear, but with a warmth that spread through her whole body. She had thought he would end her life, but instead, he had given her a reason to live. That night, when they found shelter in a broken building, she sat closer to him than ever before. She did not care if the world called her a traitor. She did not care if her people hunted her forever. What she cared for was the human beside her, the man who had awakened something far greater than hate, something that crossed the line between enemy and ally, between fear and desire. As she closed her eyes, leaning against the warmth of his shoulder, she finally understood. It was not mercy alone that kept her alive. It was not survival alone that bound her to him. It was something far deeper, something she had never known before. And, in that moment, she no longer feared what tomorrow would bring, because she would face it with him.